Hi, everybody. Welcome to Inside Scoop with Sue. And today it is Inside Scoop with Sue and Eka. Eka's on as a guest host with me. And we're so happy to have Dr. Cameron Caswell with us. We have known each other for a while, and this is her first time on as a guest. I don't know why, but I'm so happy you're here.
I don't know why either. I'm excited to be here.
I know. So let me just tell a little bit about you. Cameron is also Dr. Cam. Is known as the teen translator, which I love the title because it's true. You're helping us understand what is going on with these teens. Right. She's an adolescent psychologist, family success coach, host of the podcast Parenting Teens with Dr. Cam and Parenting Teens Power Hour. You've been on a TED Talk, which is always so cool, and the author of Power Phrases for Parents, Teen Edition, which we used to put that stuff out there all the time about like that conversation starter kind of language. So it's so useful. Do you have a copy of the book so you can hold it up?
I do. Let me grab it real quick. It's right here.
Okay. All right. And of course, Jessica's in the background and she already got Dr. Cam's site up.
Here we go.
Jessica. And here's the book.
There's the book.
And Jessica, maybe you can put a link to people who are interested in getting the book. Today's topic, I feel like often, when you talk about something like ADHD or you talk about these other topics, we're all kind of on a spectrum of a lot of these things. So
yeah, it's a spectrum. We're
right,
all
right. And so when you talk about the defiant teen, to me, it's like one is a diagnosis, which is oppositional defiant disorder. But then you hear a lot of the characteristics and think, well, that's my kid too. So can you start by telling us, like, what are the signs of oppositional defiant disorder and how is that different? Like, is there a line to be drawn where it's just like typical teen defiance?
So I think, and I'm not qualified to diagnose kids with this, but it is again on a spectrum. And, when you come to oppositional defiance, it's the quantity, the amount, the level of it, and the inability to really help them calm them down. But I think when I want to talk about with defiance is it is this entire spectrum. And I think we're seeing, especially now, a lot of kids that are getting in that state of not being able to calm themselves down. And so I get parents coming to me saying that this is a really big issue when it is not an actual disorder, if that makes sense. And so I think and I guess, I don't know if you guys feel this way, but I know I feel like we have a tendency these days to prescribe disorders, anxiety disorder, depressive disorder, on very natural, normal, expected behaviors. And so I think that puts us in a dangerous mood because then it says that this isn't okay or this is a problem when it's actual typical teen development and typical feelings. Like when we're sad, we're suddenly going, we have an anxiety disorder. No, we're sad, right?
But Dr. Cam, but then the other side of it is when they were younger and they were acting out and you took them to the pediatrician and they had an ear infection and they got antibiotics, you were like, whew. So it's almost like if you have, like you said, a diagnosis, then you can almost think like, okay, now I can work within this boundary. And maybe it's a false hope, but maybe that's part of it. I mean,
I agree. I think a lot of people want an explanation of why it's going on. The idea of being able to prescribe a drug or to get outside help, definitely. And I think a lot of times we jump to that when the reason that behavior exists isn't being addressed. And so go ahead.
I'll just jump in and say that I had one very, what I consider to be very dramatic experience with a kid. And I called someone because, one of the huge benefits of Your Teen is that we have access to all of these therapists. Yeah. And the therapist started by saying, let's talk about what you do the next time it happens. And I was like, this is going to happen again. And then at the end, after saying that my kid was insane, it was clear that I was the one that needed to go. And so that's a real bummer. I don't want the responsibility to fall on me every single time But in fact, when I changed the way I responded to that kid's behavior, it was all manageable. So talk a little bit about, I mean, I don't think I'm alone in that feeling of like, can it be their problem and not mine? Oh,
You just summed up what I do, Susan, and that's why I translate teen behavior and why I like to address defiance specifically, because we tend to react to our kids' behavior. And when our kids come back and they disagree with us, they get emotional and big and yell. They say mean things like, I hate you, or you're the worst parent ever. They roll their eyes. They do any of this. This triggers us. And we're like, oh, no, you don't. I'm your parent. No. Right. And so
we've never said that. Eka and I have never said that.
We've never said that even today. Right. So we get in this place of, oh no, this is shutting down. I don't get, this is not okay. The thing is, we jump to an assumption when our kids act that way, that they're being purposefully disrespectful and nasty to us. And that when we stop and think for a second, first of all, there is not one teen I've ever talked to in my 20 years working with teens that wants to get in trouble, that wants to disappoint their family, that wants to get everybody upset. So when we make the assumption that they're doing this on purpose, that's not a good assumption. It's a false assumption. What I want people to think of, and where I always ask my parents, is to always start at the baseline that they're doing the best they can in this very moment. And what appears to us as defiance is their best attempt to self-advocate. And when they get louder and they get nastier, the reason is because they do not feel heard, and they're going to try to get louder and bigger, which guess what? Us parents do too, don't we? When they're not listening, we get louder and bigger. So they've learned that from us. So
okay, let's talk about what to do instead in 1 second, but I want to share. First of all, Jippy, I'm so happy to see you. I haven't seen you in the comments in a while. She loved your comment about how when we're sad, it's a normal reaction to experience something sad. It was a great eye opener for her and helpful with her teen. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, I think, and I'm glad you brought that up, because I think we do get so worried, and our need as parents for our kids to be happy and okay is getting to a dangerous level, because we need to let our kids experience sadness, nervousness, anger, all of these very healthy emotions that are giving us indicators of what's going on and what we need. And when we gloss over it and say, oh, it's okay, you're going to be okay. Oh, it's happy. Oh, don't get mad. There's no reason to be mad. We're invalidating how they're feeling. We're not making them feel any better. In fact, we're making them feel worse, because now they feel bad about feeling bad. And now the last person they're going to come to when they feel bad is you, because you're not letting them feel that emotion. And this includes anger, which is extremely hard for parents to accept, because it often feels directed at us. And when we stop and we say, why is my teen so angry? Why do they feel the need to express themselves like this? Then we can get to what's going on. And we can get to a place of curiosity rather than criticism. And I think we jump to criticism far too quickly, because we want to, they're our kids, we want to, mold them and make sure they're going in the right direction. But we've got to make sure we're looking at our kids, not the kids we're trying to make them into. And we need to address that. Who are they? And how do we accept and understand them? And then from there, help them learn to express themselves in a more effective way.
One of the things in our parenting group is it comes up all the time about defiance. I mean, it hits us so hard, and it's kind of like in such contrast to how our parents raised us, which was like, you will not talk to me like that. But if you had to give do you have a scenario that kind of like comes up a lot in your office, and then tell us what are the things that work in that scenario?
Absolutely. So this is, I see this all the time, where the kids are either getting really loud and really getting just angry, or they're shutting down. And I see this a lot when I'm in the room, The kids don't tend to get as loud. They tend to shut down because they don't want to get loud in front of me, right? So they'll do the opposite, but it's the same response where they're just like, I don't care anymore. And so both are the I'm not being heard. And so here's what I ask parents. The first thing is we have to be the ones that remain calm. As soon as we pile on more emotion, we are now not only triggering their emotion, which was already there, but now ours is added. And so now we're both closing down the prefrontal cortex where our thinking brain is, and we're all moving into the amygdala where the emotion brain is. And we're just adding fuel to the fire. So if we want our kids to calm down, we have to be the ones to do it first. They are not going to. They don't have the same tools. When they compare brains and they look at the limbic system, when parents are looking at something really negative, their prefrontal cortex is still lighter and their amygdala still smaller and lit up than kids experiencing something pleasant. Their amygdala is already bigger and their prefrontal cortex is not as lit up. So even when we're in a bad state versus good state, they're still more emotional. So we get into a bad state and they're in a bad state, they're not coming down. So we have to be the ones. And this is the thing that most of the parents I work with say that has the biggest initial change is when they start showing up calm. And then their kids learn to become calm, and they learn and have the space to become calm. The second piece is the most important parenting skill that I think is out there for a parent with a teenager is being able to listen with empathy. And the difference of listening with empathy than just like active listening is parents will try to active listen, right? And they'll be like, I see you're angry. Yes, I understand. And boy, does that blow the kids up. They're just like, don't psychobabble me. What are you doing? And what's happening is we're actually, in doing that, again, devaluing their emotion because now they're really angry. And we're like, they're pissed off. They're furious. They are so upset. And we're like, yeah, you're angry. No, I'm not angry. I'm pissed off. And you're not. And so they get bigger and bigger and bigger to show how emotional they are. And we're like, it's not working. The empathy part is get in their shoes. Look at it from their perspective. When we just say, oh, you're angry, we're trying to pacify them. We're placating them. And they know that. And they're not okay with that. They need you to understand how they're feeling and why. We may not agree. We may not fully understand, but we want to get in their shoes. How would I feel if I was trying to express myself and someone kept telling me I was wrong and needed to calm down and go to my room? If my boss did that, well, my boss did that and I no longer work there, right? So I get to leave. The kids don't get to leave. So how would I feel if someone was shutting me down, telling me I was wrong, and then I just had to listen to them and I thought they were wrong?
Okay, so Dr. Cam, here's something I did. And you can tell me, let's hear. Okay, my daughter comes home. She's going on and on about this friend who was just being horrible, absolutely horrible to her. I listen and then I say, you know what? I totally agree. She's a total B. Now, right or wrong?
So I think I love that you are siding with her. And I think that is really important. And I'm gathering your daughter felt really hurt at that point.
She came home. She was like in tears. And I'm like, okay, you know what? Let's hate her together collectively. Let's do this. We hate her. She's a B. Boom. Right.
And we do that. Now, I think the next step is focusing on how she feels. And the one thing I would be a little careful about is getting in the boat of labeling the other person, because now we want to make sure, because we want to teach them compassion and understanding too, but being on their side. So it's like, man, you're right. Not that she is a B bitch, but she acted like one. Man, she really treated you poorly. And so the difference is the behavior. Her behavior was not good towards you. She may still be a good person. She may be going through a big old mess that we don't know about. So she may not be actually a bitch, but the big piece that you did that was so important is that you sided with your daughter. You got in her shoes, because a lot of parents would have been like, oh, now be nice. Oh, that's not nice to say. Oh, I'm sure it's not that bad. And that would piss. So your daughter felt, yeah, mom's on my side. And that's huge. That is so very, very important.
But then I have to be the mature one.
Well, right. Well, what's hard here, because if you immediately said, oh, but maybe she's feeling this, you would have lost her. Right. So you didn't want to all of a sudden side with her, but it's kind of like saying, just changing the language a little bit to the behavior rather than the person.
Okay.
And I say this for parents with their kids too. Your kids aren't lazy. And I dislike the word lazy so much, because there's always a reason why we don't do things. But instead of lazy, your kids in this moment are reacting in a way that feels lazy to you. Right? Their behavior may appear lazy to you, but they're not a lazy person. So I think with this friend, it's like, man, yeah, they treated you really poorly. Yeah, that feels like a pretty bitchy move to me. The difference.
Okay, go ahead. First of all, Lori, it's great to see you. Lori said I asked a good question. Thank you. I always love that. And Stephanie, it's good to see you also. Today's a day of fan favorites. And Stephanie wants to know, so like her son has a girlfriend. They're very, very close. And he's moving away a little bit.
Yeah.
So it's not really a defiance issue, but it's a relationship issue and painful, totally painful. So do you have any advice for Stephanie?
I do, Stephanie. And I think this part is so hard for parents when our kids start doing that separation and we start going, oh my God, they'd rather spend time with their friends. We see a lot with their girlfriend. And there's a few things to really think about. The first thing is that is a sign of very healthy development, that they're spending time with somebody else. I think the key is right now is to stay connected as much as you can and giving them their space. And when you allow them their space and you're not like trying to pull them in, they won't fight it. Like if you're trying to rein them in and you're not, and guilting them, you're not spending enough time. And I'm not saying you're doing this, but I see parents do this. You're not spending enough time with me, or I miss you, or things like that. And we guilt them. They're going to get a little resentful, right? Instead, it's like, bring your girlfriend over. I'd love to learn more about her, or I'd love to hear more about what you guys are doing, and kind of meet them where they're at, but give them that space, because then they're going to want to come back and talk to you about it.
That's beautiful. Okay. My next question is the scenarios, and Stephanie is probably doing a great job just based on what we know about her. So that was nice of you to add to it. Thank you. The scenario that I think often enrages us is when the kid is dismissive. So we've asked them to do something and the kid is like, goes in their room, closes the door, and sees no need to respond to you. And there's a defiance in there that you can't, it's not rage, it's not loud, but boy, is that one hard to deal with. So, what would you suggest to your parents?
So this is where I do the translation. Here's what your teen is experiencing. I now realize that my life is my life. Up until now, I did what mom and dad said, and I really didn't even think I never questioned it, because I never thought I had a choice. Now I'm a teenager and I'm going, wait, my life is my own. And there's things I want to do. There's things that I love to do. I have my own opinions. I have my own needs, right? And yet as a parent, we're still kind of treating them as do as I say, right this moment. I had a kid that said this really well the other day. He goes, when I ask my parents something, they say, well, what do you expect me? I'm not going to just drop everything right now and do it. Give me a minute. But when they ask him to do something, they expect him to drop everything immediately and do it, or they get mad. He's like, I don't understand. It's a good point. So we need to be able to realize that when our kids are going up and shutting the door, they're saying, I don't feel like I have any agency over my own life. I feel like what you're saying is controlling. The hard part is every word out of a parent's mouth at this point sounds controlling and critical. Like even when you're not trying, it goes through that lens, right? So I think it's about understanding when we ask our kids to do something, being understanding that they're their own individual. We want them to learn to help. We definitely want them to help. But when we make it an assumption that they're going to do it, and we get pissed off when they don't do it and are happy about doing it, that's a big thing. We want them to be happy about doing it. But no, they're not going to be happy. Let that go. But also try to surround that with something positive. Like we end up, another story I heard the other day, was the kids will do something. Oh, the garbage, right? The kid would, I don't want to take out the garbage. No, garbage sucks. Yeah, we don't want to take. So they took out the garbage, but they forgot to put the bag in. Guess what the mom focused on?
The bag.
Forgetting to put the bag in. The kid hated to do the trash, took the trash out, took it out, got no credit for doing that, just got blasted for the part he didn't do right. Do you think he's going to ever want to do that again? No, never. So it's like, you know what? Thank you. I know that you hate taking the garbage out. I do too. I get it. So I really appreciate that you did that. Next time, I'm putting the bag in. Just next time, remember, if you can remember, put the bag in. This is giving them some respect. And I think parents are like, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to, tiptoe all around. No, it's treating your kids with dignity. It's understanding and valuing that they're doing it just for you and appreciating that. And the more you surround doing things like this with good feelings, the more they're going to want to do it.
Dr. Cam, Stephanie, as we agree, is saying you are an excellent therapist.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other scenarios you can think of, Eka, that you want to?
So let me ask you, so is there a fine line between a child or a teen trying to differentiate versus defiance? I mean, it seems like they're kind of walking that line, correct?
Yeah. And, I've got to say that I think when kids get primed, and so what happens is when we are constantly kind of shutting our kids down, which we do because we're like, we don't like that, right? The more we do that, the more our kids get primed that what's going to come out of our mouth is going to be something negative. I've had kids say, home is great when my parents aren't home. The second they walk in the door, I get tense because I'm just waiting for them to come down and yell at me for something. I know it's going to be something. What didn't I do? And I'm racking my brain trying to think of what they're going to come yelling. And I can't. I hear this all the time, right? That's not what the parents intend, but that becomes that dynamic. The more our kids are in that state of stress and wondering, the more they're in that state of resentment and anger, the more cortisol is flooding through their heads, the more enlarged their amygdala becomes, and the harder it is for them to calm down. That becomes chronic stress. And chronic stress is not something that you just come down from. They're always in it. So if our kids are in this constant state, that's when it becomes to the point where it's no longer controllable, where it is so on the surface that even a tiny little nip will make them explode.
So how do you change that cycle?
You change that cycle by knowing that it's going to take a while to change the cycle because they now don't have any trust in the system. And so it is now focusing on what they do right. It is not throwing a parade and being for every time they do. It's just saying thank you. It's looking more for what they do right than what they do wrong. If our conversations with them are always on their grades and how they need to pull their grades up and why they don't do enough around the house and they spend so much time on social media and they're always in their room and ew, like why would they want to ever spend time with you when they're in that state? It is about, oh my gosh, I can't believe you got your, I'm so proud of you for bringing your C up to a C+. What did you do? How'd you do that? Thank you. I can't believe you put the dish in the sink. I can't believe, but thank you for putting the dish in the sink and remembering. That's cool. Not, why aren't you, right? It's like, thank you. Look for what they do right. And if you can't find anything they do right, which parents have told me, you are not looking hard enough. You're not.
That is a great thing to point out to us because sometimes all it takes is having someone say to you, look for something good. Because we forget to do it. So one of the things that changed my parenting was when a therapist said to me, don't get focused on the language and the tone of voice. And that comes up so often with parents that, and I mean, I grew up in a house like that, and I did it myself when my kids were younger. You will not talk to me like that. And I think that might have been the single biggest shift in my relationship with my kids. How do we get away from believing that this is my house? I am the adult. You will talk to me this way. I mean, it's a different time that we're raising our kids, and we're kind of empowering them to be what we want to see them, but not in my house kind of feeling.
Yes. And this is the biggest struggle because we all were raised that way. And we're going, well, why aren't my kids obeying me like I obeyed my parents, right? Why aren't they doing that? And we get really angry with that. And why should my kids be able to walk all over me? Well, first of all, this is not about allowing your kids to walk all over you. And I repeat that all the time. Susan, what you said about the tone and the words is so critical because they are doing the best they can to communicate. So it's about why are they so upset? Getting to the underlying. If they're saying nasty stuff to you, you don't need to accept that. But it's not a yelling back. It's I want to understand you, but I'm not okay with those words. Makes me feel terrible. So I'm going to wait until you're ready. And then I really want to hear what you have to say.
I love that. I love that because it's not an all or nothing. It's not like, behave however you want to.
No, God, no.
But we have to be the ones who are bringing the temperature way down.
Yeah. And it's a separating ourselves and not taking what they're saying personally. And I know we say that all the time and it's really hard to do, but it's so really, really true that those words and everything else. Now, the part to take personally is they are reacting to you. And I think that's one thing to think too, is we often think our teens are setting the tone and they're starting it. Every single teenager I've talked to has said that their response is in reaction to how they feel their parents are coming at them. And so we want to make sure that we're understanding. And again, this is not about being permissive parents. That does not work at all. And they will walk all over you. That's not okay. It's about being a calm parent, right? It's about being a parent with boundaries, with self-respect, but also respecting our kids. And I want to say, a lot of people say, well, it worked for us. The amount of mental health issues in this world, the amount of people pleasers that our generation has become, and the need to always be doing and pleasing and on, and our baggage is what we're giving to our kids. So I'm going to question that we're all okay. Sorry.
So will our teens outgrow this behavior with time?
Our teens, well, and that's one thing too. Like, I love that you asked that because a lot of parents get this panic sense of, if I let my kid lay on the couch today, my kid is going to lay on the couch until they're 95, right? They're never going to stop. If I let my kids play video games now instead of taking out the garbage, they're never going to amount to anything. We need to get out of that frame of mind, because sometimes they do just need to chill. And eventually, their room's a disaster. Yes. When they get older, if your home is clean and you like cleanliness, if you are modeling this type of behavior, they're going to grow out of a lot of this. The most important piece of it is that when they grow out of this, they still feel connected with you and you are on their side. We want them to leave home because they're ready to leave home, not because they are counting the days to leave home.
All right. Well, that is the final zinger, because at the end of the day, it's all about our relationship with them. So, Dr. Cam, I will agree. You are an unbelievable therapist, and you seamlessly move from topic to topic here. And it was really an Ask Me Anything, and you did a great job. So thank you so much for being here with us today.
My pleasure. Thank you for asking me.